Hello everyone and welcome along to another episode of Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. As always, my sparring partner, Steve Ryder, to my left, and to my right, my former Channel 4 colleague, Graham Cunningham, broadcaster, journalist. Welcome to the Racing Weekly studio. Graham, how are you?
I'm good. Hi Rishi, hi Steve, hi everyone. It's a treat to be joined by the hardest working man in the sports business. From Royal Ascot to Wimbledon, to the golf, to the Olympics next week. Thank you for your service to sports, Rishi.
Thank you for your time. But this was an important episode because you were on the list of guests, so I made sure that I'd be available.
Thank you.
To reconvene. Do you remember when we used to sit in the studio on Channel 4?
Yeah,
with
I do.
Jimbo.
The great thing about this one is that we don't have to operate in freezing cold temperatures with a He-Go machine that only works when it wants to. I still only have nightmares about 3 times a month about that.
The He-Go machine. How much have you enjoyed the racing in the last week or so?
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Saturday was a weird one because it was so hot. I actually just spent the whole afternoon in front of the telly watching racing, which is quite rare with a 6-year-old daughter. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good action and a lot to look forward to.
There's a fair bit to chat about over the last week or so. Let's just take a pause on the racing just to talk about Alice Proctor and send our best wishes to her and her family and friends, because obviously she took a horrible fall at Cartmel on Saturday. We understand that she is conscious in intensive care. We would like to send her our very best wishes for a speedy recovery. One of the big talking points over the last week, Graham, has been the start of Champions Full Gallop on ITV. Generally, it's been quite well received. I'd like to know your thoughts on what you've seen.
I think no surprise that it's been well received. It's a really good showcase for horse racing, for people to understand a little more, to develop the characters. And I've only seen the first episode at the moment. I know there are 3 available if you want to find them. I thought it was good. I hope, besides heroes, we find some villains as well, because all sport drama in general needs is heroes and villains. It can be good with just the heroes. It can be great with the heroes and villains counterpoint it.
Yeah. I've obviously seen the first episode. I'll be interested to hear what your thoughts are, because one of the criticisms of it, and I can see, having seen one episode, and I think you've seen 3, Steve, is that perhaps it's a little bit sanitised. It's a little bit of a promotional activity for the sport. Do you buy into that? Do you see that?
Yeah, slightly. I enjoyed episode 3 more than I did the other 2. You kind of got the real fighting spirit of Paul Nicholls in the 3rd episode, with the Trainers' Championship coming towards a close and Ginny's Destiny versus Grey Dawning. And that side of it, I really enjoy seeing behind the scenes, with Harry Cobden's personality coming out, Paul Nicholls' just will to win coming out. And I think that's what really makes these sort of documentaries. The Drive to Survive is falling in love with Daniel Ricciardo and his personality on screen. And I think more of that is what we kind of need from the show.
Yeah, my mild criticism is not of the show itself. It's of the expectations being built up around it by large sections of the racing media, talking about a potential marketing miracle. And a story in the Racing Post the other day I saw, which was crediting, Market Racing crediting Friday night's episode with a spike in attendance. Now, come on, man. The programme finishes at what, 9:30, 10 p.m.
Yeah.
And hundreds and hundreds of people are saying, quick, let's go to Market Racing tomorrow. That's just hilarious. But other than that, it's a positive, and I look forward to the rest of the series.
As much as I enjoyed it, I think there was a little bit too much of the ITV team talking.
Really?
I felt that I'd like to have heard more from the people involved in the sport.
Isn't that because the makers think we need narrators here? We need people to squeeze the quart into a pint pot.
Yeah, I just thought that there were quite a few of our voices, me included, less of me.
And no fee for that, I assume.
There was that as well. All voluntarily time given. So trying to help the sport.
Once again, thank you for your service.
Stop it. Is there a He-Go machine here that Graham can use? Okay, one other thing to mention has been the success, and we'll talk more in detail about the racing over the last week, but in general, the success of British horses in Ireland. You know, obviously in the jump season, we take a pounding during the jump season from the Irish visitors. But it's quite nice to see the Brits having a good time over there.
Can't believe that the Irish authorities haven't announced a root and branch review of where it's going wrong. But no, the sprinters in particular, the Irish are at a low ebb in the sprinters. We had a 1-2-3 of the weekend, Believing, leading home in a Group 2. And Blue Stocking, etc. Fallen Angel, Steve has more besides. It's been a healthy run for the Brits in the Group 1s and Group 2s and Group 3s.
Yeah, so 6 group races in Ireland over the weekend, 4 won by UK trained horses, 2 for Irish, and it's the same with the Group 1s. So 6 Group 1s, 4 for the UK, 2 for Ireland. Yeah, Rosalie, Fallen Angel, Blue Stocking, and you got to me. So, yeah. But then you also reverse it, and the Irish have come over and won, the Falmouth and various races at Royal Ascot as well. So
I think whether it's from Ireland or the UK, the large number of trainers who can get in on the big shows. We saw at Ascot, so many different winning sets of connections. That sort of competition is always healthy, whether it's from the Irish side or the UK side.
Yeah, and it's always more enjoyable, I think, as a fan, certainly during the flat season, to have more people having success at the top. And obviously, with the better split between success between Britain and Ireland, then it makes it certainly more interested than during the jump season, when it's just dominated all the big races by 1, maybe 2 trainers, really. But that leads us nicely into this week's racing recap. And we start with a classic from the Curragh last weekend, and that was the Irish Oaks. Rafe Beckett has got a very good team of fillies, as we know, and You Got To Me. Graham, I'll start with you here. I thought it was a terrific ride, above all else, from Hector Crouch, personally.
Yeah, tongue tie for the first time, and different tactics. She's looked at a real fireball twice this season, first at Lingfield, and then when she set a really hard gallop in the Ribblesdale. So the more patient tactics enabled her to show a career best. I don't think it's top class form. I also think that Content, the runner-up, was a little bit unlucky. She got a very choppy run at a crucial point in that race when they hadn't gone that hard round the home turn. But for Rafe Beckett to get that filly to peak after she'd put so much into the Ribblesdale was a canny training performance and a very significant day for the winner's rider, Hector Crouch.
Yeah, he's grown in confidence. I think it's the same thing all the time, isn't it, Steve? When a jockey has lots of ability, but when they get the support enables them to have that confidence. They ride with more confidence, knowing that if they have the odd mistake here or there, the odd error, that it doesn't really matter that much because they'll have that training support. And Rafe Beckett is providing that platform for Hector Crouch.
Definitely, and the plan will have definitely been to be more prominent, I think. I think missing the break probably was a blessing in disguise for him. The first time tongue tie or a combination of the more waiting tactics definitely helped her. Ryan Moore tracked through on Content, set the fastest final furlong, just didn't quite get there. Will she fully stay the trip of 1.5 miles? There's still question marks around that with regards to Content. She emphatically reversed form, obviously from the Ribblesdale with Port Fairy and Lava Stream. 8-1 for the Irish Oaks. How strong is that 3-year-old form, though? That's the question, isn't it? If you look back at the Oaks, Ezelia looked a star, but it seemed like a bunch just in behind.
I agree.
I'd personally prefer the older fillies in something like the Yorkshire
Blue Stocking, her stablemate.
Yeah.
They could meet in the Yorkshire Oaks, but we've got Blue Stocking to talk about for the King George this weekend, all going well.
Yes. The other thing as well, I thought there were 1 or 2 hard luck stories in behind. I thought Johnny Murtaugh's filly, Hanalia, I thought she ran really well considering how the race panned out for her. She had to challenge wide. I'll definitely be watching out for her at a future date. Also at the Curragh Cup took place and Tower of London produced visually a remarkable performance. His stable companion looked to have everything else in trouble. He was the only one to charge him down. Yeah,
Gavin Ryan gave Grosvenor Square a brilliant ride in second. I saw a few people say, it was a great ride by Ryan Moore. It really wasn't. Like the horses got him completely out of trouble. I completely understand he was kind of blocked in, had to wait for a run, and then as it happens, his final 2 furlongs are actually the fastest of the whole race, which kind of says it all really. If you go back and watch it, Grosvenor Square actually maintained his gap to Vauban in third. So Gavin Ryan has actually judged it perfectly from the front. But Tower of London is just a superior horse. It's going to be interesting to see what they do for the rest of the season, really, because they were earlier on in the season they were keen to emphasise how much pace he had, which is why they didn't go to the Ascot Gold Cup. The Melbourne Cup is 12-1 with Bet365. It has been muted as a possible target for him. I just think around the 1.6 mile route, you'd probably go to the Irish St Ledger if Kyprios wasn't in the same stable, wouldn't you?
He's got the Lonsdale Cup at York as a possible target. I think they'll have the Melbourne Cup high on the agenda for that horse. If the Racing TV website splits are to be believed, he did 4 consecutive sub-12 second furlongs to finish, including an 11.5 closer, if that's correct. He's an unusual horse. He's got a real turn of foot. Potential problem, I think he's now rated 118 on the BHA scale, which unless there's a real ace in the pack for the Melbourne Cup, it's going to put him right among the highweights. Aidan O'Brien, Johannes Vermeer and Tiger Moth, both second in the Melbourne Cup. Marla was third, and 1 or 2 major disappointments. Yates went down there at one point, didn't he? In typical fashion, Aidan O'Brien talked about his Melbourne Cup frustrations. Others have done a better job, he says, for now, including his son Joseph, who's won a couple, hasn't he?
Yes, Rekindling was the first, wasn't it? The betting with Bet365 for the Melbourne Cup has a Calandagan as their 8-1 favourite, Giovanotto 12s, Tower of London 12s, Circular Fire, remember him, 14s, Going the Distance 14s, Middle Earth, who is lining up for the King George this weekend, 14-1, along with Without a Fight, and then 16-1 bar those. The thing about Tower of London that I really enjoyed is the splits. When he won in Meydan, he also produced quite a remarkable sectional time towards the end of the race. And clearly, he's a mile and 6 horse with speed. And sometimes they go quite slowly in the early stages of the Melbourne Cup.
Yeah.
I thought, in fact, I think I said it earlier in the season, after he won in Dubai, I thought he was more of a Melbourne Cup type than a Cup horse here.
Well, he was being talked about as a Melbourne Cup horse late last summer.
Yeah.
And instead they went for the Ledger and the Iris Azarowicz, which is a very rich prize. This time around, I think he's got the right sort of tools. Strong travelling stayer who settles and acceleration. The problem is the potential handicap mark, because he's likely to be right up among the top weights now.
So do we think Vauban is still a credible Melbourne contender? 16-1 with Bet365?
I would be much keener on the horse who won the weekend, Steve. What do you think, the Tower of London? I just think he just showed superior acceleration. A horse like Vauban, who has been down and had a go and ran a pretty plain race, to be frank, it's asking a great deal for him to win it again the second year, I think.
Yeah, Vauban was definitely on the upward curve last year as well, and this year, unless they've trained him specifically to peak for Melbourne, I'd have preferred him last year.
I'd be surprised if Calandagan went for the Melbourne Cup, but I would not be surprised to see Calandagan make a big splash in Group 1 company before too long.
Is the Champion Stakes the race for? That's the race they're targeting.
They're also talking about the Juddmonte International. That's going to be a hell of a race.
What a race!
City of Troy,
Economics,
Passenger, White Birch.
Well, they're talking about the maybe call them lurkers, horses who have won pretty good races, who could go right into Group 1 company. If you're looking at Calandagan, I think, who was terrific at Royal Ascot. Besides that, Economics, King's Gambit, who I think runs at York this weekend. Matsuri is on the upgrade. And Arabian Crown, who seemed to be Godolphin's main derby hope after Sandown in the spring. Hopefully we'll see him back perhaps for the Great Voltages. So I think there are a good handful of horses who haven't had that Group 1 chance yet, who will get that chance before too long.
All right, well, another horse who is certainly heading towards Group 1 company is Elite Status. He won the Hackwood, and I'm going to let Steve kick off on this horse because I know you're a big fan of the horse. Very, very smart performance. I like the performance of the second as well, Lake Forest, but talk me through your thoughts on Elite Status.
Yeah, I love this horse. He didn't quite travel as well as he did on his reappearance in the Carnarvon Stakes, and at around halfway I was like, ooh, actually, has that little setback just meant that you've missed too much work that you kind of take the fizz off him? But then you only need to look in the final furlong or so and his ears are flapping and he's kind of got to the front and not really gone through with it, which is strange for him because he won, the National Stakes by 5 lengths last season. He won on his reappearance by just under 3 lengths. So he has gone away at the finish, but he just seemed to be kind of dossing in front. It was a real form boost for the 3-year-olds. We questioned that form, didn't we, after the July Cup result? But a 1-2-3 for those. You had Lake Forest and Kind of Blue, who finished 2nd and 4th in the Commonwealth Cup, finishing 2nd and 3rd. And then Regional, who's just rock solid on that good to firm ground, finishing in 4th. So I definitely do think it's form that you can set your watch by. It's going to be an interesting thing what Clifford Lee decides to ride in the Sprint Cup, isn't it? Because he's got Swing Along, who's finished 2nd in both their starts in the Group 1s this season. and now elite status.
If I'm Clifford Lee, I'm not jumping off any horse who's owned by the sheikh who must be obeyed. You see what I mean?
Yeah,
That could have
Yeah.
Yes.
ramifications down the track.
Yeah.
But that double has been done in recent past. Minzal won the Hackwood and the Haydock Sprint Cup in the same season. And I, like you, Steve, I'm still optimistic that this 3-year-old crop of sprinters can have a say in good company. Lake Forest was that the runner-up at the weekend. You know, his performance shows that Inisherin's Commonwealth Cup
was a good
form is pretty solid. The other horse, he's in danger of becoming a mini Cliff horse for me, is Jasor. And I hope they consider supplementing for the Nunthorpe with him and going bombs away like Winter Power did, like Living the Dream did, because he just gives me the impression that he just has that naked speed that could help him shine at York.
Yeah.
Naked speed. I love that phrase. I've never been one that has been blessed with naked speed.
Or any speed.
Or any speed.
Well, rather than being naked, maybe they could put a hood on. that would probably help Jasur as well.
For the Sprint Cup, Van Dijk is the 5-1 favourite with Bet365. Inisherin 6-1. Swing Along 7's elite status, 8s, 9s regional, Bucanera Fuerte, 10s along with Jasur. Lake Forest, I think, judged by his run in the Commonwealth Cup and in the Hackwood, I think there's got to be a good 7-furlong race with him. He looks like a potential foray horse. I don't know if the Lennox.
Yeah, he's sort of surprised me because I thought the Jim Cracky one was a very plain
Average,
Jim Crack indeed, but he's come good on his last 2 starts for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a good race in him as well. A great day for trainer Jack Jones, young Jack Jones, who bought Caburn, Graham, and he ran over 6 first time up and won a huge pot. And we know for young trainers starting just what a prize the Wetherby Super Sprint is.
This horse cost 25 grand as a yearling. He trousered pretty much 130 just for winning first prize at the weekend. So that's a notable feather in the cap of the trainer. When I looked up Jack Jones's stats, it's his 3rd season. He only had 1 winner in his first, so he's effectively in his 2nd proper season. Last year, 25 wins, which is pretty good. 19% strike rate. 19% strike rate when you're not dealing with, 6-figure horses 7 days a week. That's a pretty canny achievement.
Yeah, he obviously was the star man of the show, Jack Jones. So was Dylan Hogan for forcing his way through at the end, but he picked up a significant ban.
Yeah, 11 days he got, and they've called it improper riding. I think that's towards the bottom end of where they could have gone for the improper riding. I was watching Matt Chapman, and he was discussing on the head-on, you could see him forced away. I've not actually seen that footage to see it, but you can see, Invincible Anis is definitely retreating when he actually forces that gap. So it's an interesting one. I'd quite like to see the head-on footage.
Can I be slightly self-indulgent? Put in
Please.
a quick word for a rider who was back in Britain at the weekend and rode his first winner, Vincent Ho, from Hong Kong. And I messaged him to say, well done, great to see. And he said, thanks, Graham, but I got a ban for hitting another one too hard on a different ride. So I don't know how long he's going to get. Yeah. But I know he's desperate to ride at Goodwood, so I hope it doesn't impact on his Goodwood chances. But, and this is no knock on British riders, he's a Premier League rider. He's an absolutely world-class rider, and if people don't spy the chance to give him rides in a few decent races, they'll be missing out on something that would give them an advantage over most. All
right, well, he's obviously teaming up. As long as he gets to Goodwood, he'll be teaming up with the right person down there in Charlie Johnston.
Hope so.
Okay, so the Johnston family have a great record down at Goodwood. Just a word about Jack Jones, just picking up on what you were saying about his stats. There are a few of the Rogues horses that have made their way to Jack Jones, and it was interesting on the weekend after the win of Caburn on Saturday night. He was sending messages on Saturday night.
This is the Rogues Gallery horses, not the actual.
Yes. Not the. He was sending messages about the Rogues horses on Saturday night out to the owners of the Rogues. So even though he was enjoying his biggest day as a trainer, his head's firmly screwed on about going forward and not just enjoying himself and reflecting, basking in glory.
And that Super Sprint was sort of set up as an opportunity for a smaller trainers, smaller owners to win a really big pot with a pretty cheap horse.
Yeah, you won't be seeing him over 5 furlongs again. He'll definitely go back. I think his target's going to be the Jim Crack.
Yeah.
York. So.
Did try to buy. Apparently, the Rogues tried to buy.
Really?
A horse as well. So, one that just missed out. Also at Newbury, the Steventon Stakes. Now, funny race this because I tell you why I didn't like it. I didn't like Al Yanabi being out in front. No. I don't know how that. I would never envisage Al Yanabi making the running. The way he ran last year, that whole race. So I'm prepared to put a line through it already. But do either of you have a strong view on Phantom Flight beating Al Azi?
Well, I watched it closely. It's probably an old bias, thinking, did Al Azi dog it? And I don't think he did.
No.
And it was roles reversed from the same race 12 months ago, the first and second reversed. Phantom Flight will have Bahrain high on his agenda for the winter. And I think from a human angle here, another real handy win for Callum Shepherd, whose name has popped up at the 5-day stage against King's Gambit in the Group 2 Sky Bet York Stakes this weekend. So his contacts and his chances to shine on big Saturdays are getting stronger and stronger at the moment.
And rightly so. He's had a fabulous year despite the setbacks, both on and off the course, for Callum Shepherd. George Scott as well. Obviously, both he and Callum Shepherd with Isle of Jura, sadly out for the remainder of the season. What a horse to get now, in fact, or what a horse to have now in Phantom Flight to replace that.
Yeah, this was some training performance. First run for 343 days, first run for George Scott, first run since being gelded. But like you, I'd have a slight question mark around the form. There was 4.5 lengths covering the whole field at the end. The whole avoid Rosalian experiment didn't work for Ali Nabi, did it? I don't think he stayed the 10 furlongs. I don't think he enjoyed front running. So it's back to the drawing board for him. I don't think it's really going to be form that we're dwelling on too much for the rest of the season. The handicap has only put him up a pound to 108. That kind of says it all, really, after winning this.
Okay, those are some of the main races, but I think there was quite a lot to enjoy away from some of the main attractions. Anyone would you like to start with?
I'll let GC go first. I've got lots to mop up.
I'll move on to the Curragh on Sunday. It was always going to be a big day for J.L. Lyons because I know he thinks the world of these two-year-olds, Red Letter and Babouche, and Bang Bang. They both went in. Red Letter was 8-11, I think, for a winnable maiden after a highly promising defeat the time before. And she was aggressive and bolted up. She's really well bred. J.L. Lyons is saying it's still raw ability at the moment. It's not. She's not the finished article, but he did mention the Moigler, which could be an absolute showstopper if we get perhaps Bedtime Story or Fairy Godmother. I doubt we'll get both, but the Irish 2-year-old fillies, I think, are looking really strong at the moment. Babouche won the Anglesey Stakes in pretty hard-earned style.
But she travelled beautifully through the whole race, didn't she?
Yeah. She's by Kodiak, and she's going, I think, for the Phoenix Stakes. I think it's over a decade since a filly won the Phoenix Stakes. But just keen to have a crack at a Phoenix Stakes that probably will include Henri Matisse, maybe Whistle Jacket. So the Ballydoyle 2-year-old colts at the moment, we'll come to one more in a moment or two, a debutante from the weekend, and not looking perhaps as intimidating as the fillies. So I think J.L. Lyons is eyeing at least one Group 1 with Red Flag and Babouche this summer.
I'll mention one horse that finished behind Red Letter by Dubawi out of Magical.
Yes, first fall of Magical.
Ballet Slippers. I thought she ran a really promising race first time. Red Letter was obviously very, very smart and very classy and won in style, but I thought Ballet Slippers put up a really nice performance first time up. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing her improve. What about you?
It's worth looking back at the form of Red Letter's debut as well. Finished second behind Lake Victoria. If you go back and look at that race, Aidan O'Brien has run the likes of Ylang Ylang, Tuesday, Snowfall, Love, Rhododendron, Happily, Alice Springs, all in that race. So that's the race that he targets his proper fillies at. So for her to finish second to Lake Victoria, you could probably upgrade that from the time as well. I'm sure the colt that Graham's talking around is the Lion in Winter, so I'll leave that for him. There was a couple of others that took my eye. Arabian Light won at Newmarket on Friday evening. Now, we won at 1-5, and normally that's not something that would particularly impress me. But what he did in the final 2 furlongs, off a slow pace, was actually quite impressive. The form of his debut second was boosted by Ombudsman, who won at Leicester on Thursday as well. So Arabian Light for Godolphin's probably one to keep an eye on. Sure Touch obviously won the Summer Plate under Harry Cobden, got kind of a Hollywood ride that can go into a documentary. I just thought it was quite ironic. Obviously, Sean Bowen had chosen to ride one for his dad instead, leaving that ride up for grabs for Cobden to have. He's obviously just suffered an injury. He's going to be out a couple of weeks, which is obviously a little bit of a shame, but he shouldn't miss too much time. Another one I want to mention is Kalpana. She won at Hamilton on Friday. I had her down as a proper stayer over 1.5 miles plus. This was over 1.3 miles, but it was a really slow pace. I think her final finishing speed percentage, I think, was about 110%. So she has got a turn of foot, which should help her. She'd obviously finished third in the Ribblesdale. That's received a couple of boosts and a couple of letdowns from the form, depending on how you want to look at it. But I thought Kalpana was probably one that you didn't want to forget about going forward.
All right. I'll mention one if I can, and that will be Mistral Star, who won at Newmarket, and she absolutely bolted up in the Aphrodite. She's got an outstanding pedigree. Francois Scirocco Star. That's the old Helena Springfield family that goes back to Replicolor and all those great horses. And she ran third in the Queen of Pride race.
Yes,
at
the
Haydock.
Pinnacle Stakes.
And she couldn't get a run. She was a bit unlucky in that race. Obviously, Queen of the Pride has proven that she's a star as well. I think that race is working out. Lady Boba was second. Yeah. So I think she still remains open to a huge amount of improvement, Mistral Star. I wouldn't be surprised to see her by the end of the season competing in Group 1 company. I think that's where she's heading to. She won so easily. She travelled, I think Rhys Clutterbuck rode her at Newmarket. I'm excited to see what she can do with that pedigree and with the way she's showing that improvement on the course, and the form is stacking up. So that's the horse that I'm taking away from the weekend.
And I need to mention the Lion in Winter. Thanks for leaving that one for me, Steve. He won on Saturday's card at the Curragh. He didn't seem to come with any great hoopla like some Ballydoyle horses, but there are so many interesting facets to this goal. First, he's by See the Stars. Unusual for a Ballydoyle horse. They've had a couple who haven't really been stars, but this one has potential. He didn't look like he was going to play a significant part in the finish over a furlong out. And at the line, he's bounding away. Very, very strong at the finish. And as Steve touched on, certain maiden races tend to be rich proving grounds. Aidan's won that race with Australia, Derby winner, won it with Henry Longfellow, Group 1 winner, and may well shine again at Goodwood next week. Teofilo won that race way back. New Approach won that race. And thanks to Matt Brocklebank of Sporting Life for pointing out that a certain horse called See the Stars made his debut in that race and finished fourth. And it doesn't have the flash entries at the moment. I think he possibly caught Connection slightly by surprise.
Those are sometimes the most exciting ones.
Very, very interesting that he could do that first time out, bred as he is. So he has to be a prime contender for good races this autumn, I think.
With Bet365, so he's 20 to 1 for the 2,000 guineas next year with Bet365. He's 14 to 1 favourite now with Bet365 for the Derby. You'd imagine, See the Stars, you'd imagine Derby would be a more logical step. Yeah. And probably the Futurity at the end of the year, a kind of logical stepping stone or a target. Yeah,
he was. If you watch the last 100 yards, and he's looking like a real good horse as the penny drops. So I think he's going to be a mile plus horse, and he'll probably need a mile this autumn, I think. But as you say, those horses who catch you slightly by, he wasn't an outsider by any means at the weekend, but the race pedigree, his pedigree, and his closing splits were something to get you excited, I think.
Okay. Aidan O'Brien's flexing his muscles with his 2-year-olds. Obviously, we know the fillies are particularly strong, but the colts are increasing in strength as we move through the summer season. And that has been this week's Racing Recap. Now, before we get into our weekend preview, just to let you know that our sponsor Bet365 have a best odds guaranteed offer. It's available on every single UK and Irish race from 8 a.m. on the day of the race. If you take a price and the SP is bigger, Bet365 will pay you at the bigger odds. Full T's and C's can be found on the website. And now to our look ahead to what's coming up this weekend. And of course, it is the Midsummer Highlight. As tradition has demanded over the years, it's normally a clash between the best older horses and 3-year-olds in the King George and Queen Elizabeth Stakes at Ascot. Auguste Rodin is heading the market for the Aidan O'Brien team. Which Auguste Rodin still remains a question, I think, that will always haunt him through his career because of the way his career has panned out. He's the 11 to 10 favourite. Rebels Romance, the international jet setter for Charlie Appleby, 4 to 1. Blue Stocking heading to the King George instead of the NASA, 5 to 1 for Rafe Beckett. Continuous, also from Aidan O'Brien's stable, 9s. Luxembourg 9s. Sunway ran well in Ireland, 9 to 1. Dubai Honor 12s. Middle Earth 14s. Goliath 33 to 1 40s, Point Lonsdale, Hans Andersen in there. As you imagine, the pacemaker at 100 to 1. So, Graham, I know I levelled that accusation against Auguste Rodin, but I think that has to be a caveat to every time he appears on the race course.
Well, it was the question I was about to ask you two. Are you prepared to forgive the 3 blobs? 2 from last year and 1 at Meydan this spring. And I think I probably would be reasonably forgiving on that. But I don't think it's a cakewalk for him this weekend. He had a pretty tough workout in the Prince of Wales Stakes, which was a really good test for all those horses. So I'm prepared to forgive him the 3 blobs to a large extent. Mm-hmm. But I'm not prepared to dive in and take 11 to 8 or 5 to 4 or thereabouts.
Yeah. I think that's a good summary, because I'm becoming more forgiving of his disappointments, because I think perhaps there's Aidan O'Brien saying after he won at Ascot that they blame themselves, which I can understand why they do that. But still, it's at the back of your mind when he's 11 to 10 for a race with some interesting alternatives.
Yeah, he's a deserving favourite with a rating of 123. And it kind of put to bed his lacklustre effort in this last year by proving that he can do it at Ascot, albeit obviously over 10 furlongs. Martin Dwyer and myself had a bit of a disagreement around him, around the conditions that he needs to show his best. And we were both under the impression that he needs fast ground, which he should get. There's a bit of rain forecast towards the end of the week, but it's going to be definitely faster than good, I would say. And the second was that I thought he really needed a prominent ride. And the fact that Aidan O'Brien has 5 of the 11 entries means that it's going to be a fast pace, and Ryan Moore, again, will be a bit of pains to be prominent on him. I thought there was an interesting piece by Chris Cook on the Aidan O'Brien trained horses in this race, though. So he's won it 4 times in his career, fair enough, but he's only won it once in the last 15 years, which, if you think about how many times he's won the Derby, the Irish Derby, the Eclipse, with those sort of horses, it is a bit of a worrying stat, 1 in 15. Now, if you look at the horses that he's ran, Love was beaten at 13 to 8, Auguste Rodin at 9 to 4, St Nicholas Abbey at 7 to 2, then Golden Sword, Cape Blanco, Magician and Highland Real all beaten at 9 to 2. So he's had some relatively fancied horses, but it's just not a race that he seems to target. I think Auguste Rodin has been targeted at this. If you look at his runs so far, I think they have been stepping stones to try and put right what they did last year.
If you flip that coin, 4 times he has won this race. Galileo, Highland Real, Duke of Marmalade, one other whose name escapes me. They were all really well-backed favourites, and they all delivered. So these trends are always interesting. And Steve's right, with that rating of 123, Auguste Rodin sets the bar high. But I would say that he was excellent in the Prince of Wales Stakes. It was a thrilling race to watch. And I like races where there is a pacemaker to string the field out. They're just really exciting spectacles. But if you take Zarakem and Horizon Doré and put all their Group 1 wins in a box and shake it, you won't hear any noise, because they haven't got any Group 1s between them. So it would be unwise to go strongly overboard on that form, I think.
I think that's the thing, that prior to the build-up of the Prince of Wales, you were hoping that Passenger and White Birch were going to line up to really test Auguste Rodin, because obviously White Birch had thumped him in Ireland the time before, and you still left Royal Ascot not being entirely certain of what level the real Auguste Rodin is capable of this season, because we've got the blowout in Dubai, we've got the comeback where he got beaten by White Birch convincingly, and we've got finished Group 1 form relative to what he's going to face on the weekend.
Well, no City of Troy this weekend, and there's practically zero chance that those two will ever meet, City of Troy and Auguste Rodin. But Continuous and Luxembourg, if he runs, promise to put up much sterner resistance than some of his rivals.
Yeah. I came into this race wanting to take him on, and then went through the kind of his competition. You look at Rebels Romance. I mean, in fairness to him, he's unbeaten in his 5 starts in the UK. Then you go back through the form, a 1 1/4 length defeat of Elegant Man at Kempton. Is that going to be good enough to win King George? No, but winning the Shima Classic, that was an impressive victory. So it's going to be interesting to see how he kind of goes. I love Blue Stocking, as everyone that's watched this and listened to me over the last few weeks. I think she's benefited from the drop back to 10 furlongs. I think there's no doubt that the cheap pieces will be back on in this race. I thought Ross O'Ryan did well to win last time and chase down Emily Upjohn. I'd have her a lot closer to Auguste Rodin in the market. I'd have her around sort of 2 to 1. But
really?
There's still a doubt around her running, I think. I don't think it's a confirmed runner. So the 5 to 1 that's on offer with Bet365 will definitely be gone after declaration stage. I think she's a filly of the highest order. There was There was questions around her temperament last year. Now she's got that winning thread, and I think the cheek pieces have been really important. I'd have her definitely second favourite and a lot closer to August.
Did she have the cheek pieces on an island?
No, they took her off. They took them off, which I thought was a strange decision. And Ross Orion it took a little while to get going. I think cheek pieces back on here will definitely help her. And then you look at the classic generation. You said in your intro, obviously, the 3-year-olds coming against the older horses. You have to look at Sunway. Well, finished second in the Irish Derby behind Los Angeles. Was unlucky that day, but he hadn't really looked a Group 1 horse up to that point, had he? And I also like Ascot form. Ascot's a bit of a funny track sometimes. The only time that he's ever raced there in his career was when he was beaten 15 lengths by Rosalian in the Pat Ellery Stakes. So that would also be a question mark. You've got Dubai Honour and Middle Earth, who are solid Group 2 performers, but again, you'd be slightly disappointed if they'd be winning at King George. So I kind of went round and round in circles and decided that I'd end up back in blue stocking on the day if she's declared.
I've been kicking myself because I looked at this market quite closely, I'd say 3 to 4 weeks ago, and Rebels Romance was 12 to 1. And I think the odds makers had missed Charlie Appleby's chat with Nick Luck on Racing TV one day when he pointed the way towards the King George. And now you have to reassess. And I think if 9 to 2, 4 to 1, if you get 5s, I think it would be so. I bow to you on all Godolphin matters. And I think this is stretching things a little, but he's sort of a throwback to the Swain and Dale Army days. Not as good, but equally well-travelled, isn't he?
Absolutely. I mean, he has done a lot of work. I mean, he's a Breeders' Cup winner. He's won in Hong Kong. He's won the Shima Classic. You know, internationally, he's a superstar. But tradition has always suggested that King George, if you can do it, the King George is a step above what he's been doing.
Yeah.
However, having said that, I'll go back to Steve's point about the Shima Classic. That's genuine, high-class international Group 1 form.
The key fact that I want to highlight about this horse is the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th and 5th in the Shima Classic were all rated 120, 120 plus. That is a world-class Group 1 event.
The only thing, the race was quite funnily run. They separated.
Yeah, Kawada slaughtered Liberty Island, I thought.
That was a shocker.
Yeah, but August Rodin was in the backwash that day. He's a different horse now. But the gap, you know, if you're talking about 5 to 4, 11 to 10 plays 4 to 1, 9 to 2, he's super uncomplicated as well, Rebels Romance. You know, there'll be pacemakers here, but Buick will be able to settle in 2nd or 3rd. And although he's got a few little gaps on his CV, when he runs, he tends to deliver high-class form. The race he won in Hong Kong, the 2 horses he beat, 5G Patch and La City Blanche, they'd be pushed to be competitive in Group 1 company here. But the Dubai form is the one that makes him a
And I also didn't think he was at his absolute best in that Hong Kong.
No, I think if he'd been at his absolute best, he'd have won by 4 lengths. So he's had a break since then, and the signs have been good, apparently. So I think he adds a lot to the race. But you're right to touch on the do it on your home patch angle. It is significant, isn't it?
Yeah. He's done it at Kempton, so that's a big thing. Sunway, I'm definitely... reading between the lines of what David Manuzio has been saying all along through the season is that he hasn't been right. You know, the horse hasn't quite come to his best form at all. But then going into the Irish Derby, he sounded much more positive. He ran in France prior.
He stumbled coming out the stalls in France that day.
And then it was a bit of... He wasn't beaten that far, but he ran well. And then better in the Irish Derby, I think, with a cleaner run. I think that... I don't take face value the Irish Derby Los Angeles. The Varian horse, Roger Varian horse, also didn't get the cleanest run. And I think Sunway's better, but whether he can make the gap. The horse that I know people will laugh at this, but I genuinely think Middle Earth can get placed on Saturday. His splits when he won at York last year remain mind-boggling, and his turn of foot when he won at Newbury at the start of the season, excellent. King of Conquest, who he beat, has come out and won, and he had a lot of ground to make up. The faster pace will suit him.
Harder they go, the better.
Absolutely, and he had a rubbish run round in the Hardwick where he was sat up 3 wide. I mean, I'm happy to put a line through that. I just hope that they go hard enough. He slots in, the ground's fast, his conditions. I think 14 to 1 each way, he would be my play.
Bit of guesswork needed, but what do you think Aidan's going to run here?
I imagine Continuous is definitely going to go, and 1 pacemaker. So I would reckon there'll be 3 in there.
Yeah, I
Well,
don't think Luxembourg
well,
will.
he did say that Luxembourg, after he won the Coronation Cup, he did say the King George would be the race for Luxembourg, but I don't think he's a genuine mile-and-a-half horse.
neither do
I know he just won the Coronation Cup, but Ryan stole it from the front.
Yeah, and he ran in this race last year, Luxembourg, and ran okay.
Was he fourth last year? Yeah,
but was beaten fair and square. I'm still not ready to give up on Continuous. He's rated 120, the same as Luxembourg. I was a bit disappointed with his Hardwick run.
Yeah.
He went off 13 to 8 and he traded at 1.5 in running. All looked to be going well, but he didn't really hit the line with any. But have a look at how Gus, Luxembourg, City of Troy all came on for their initial runs this season. So I think we'll see the real Continuous this weekend. Now that still might not be good enough, but the real Continuous, the one who bolted up in the Voltager, who won the Ledger so handsomely and ran a very good fifth in the Arc despite a choppy run, that Continuous is a definite place contender.
Yeah. All right, so in summary...
Rebels Romance,
and
Continuous against the Jolly for me.
Blue Stocking, win only, declared.
Okay, Blue Stocking, win only, and Middle Earth each way for me.
Rafe Beckett was beaten that far last year with Westover in the same colours, wasn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he's got unfinished business with the King George. Okay, so that's a look at the big race this weekend. There's also a very good handicap, as there always is, the Moet and Chandon. And just so you all know, it is Moet. I have been told by Moet, the company, Moet Hennessy, they said it's Moet. Freddie Mercury did a huge disservice to Moet when he called it Moe in his...
Killer Queen.
Yeah, so...
Or
we just call it the International Stakes, for which actually I quite really like a horse in here, but I'll leave that for the moment. The Wizard of Eyes, a 4-1 favourite. Carry the 1 6-1. Billy Joe 7s. Alto 8s. Orazio 8s. Fresh 11s, and then 14s bar those.
Draw's not definitive here, but overall over the last decade or so, middle to high has been better. And just for the record, last year, Baradar, Hickory, Northern Express. 24, 26, 18 and 20 in this race last year.
Okay, start us off. Who's going to win?
Well, obviously everyone knows that I like the Wizard of Eyes as a horse. That did me a nice one in the Victoria Cup. The injury scare puts me off. He's only 50-50 to make the race, and even if he does get there, I don't like a horse coming there with the prep. He'd obviously appreciate the drop back from Group 1 company into a handicap, but it's actually the Victoria Cup winner from last year that's taken my eye, and that's Rebel Territory.
First time out.
Yeah, so it's going to take some training performance, 441 days off the track, but it's worth noting that he did win on his reappearance for the last 2 seasons as well. He only won his first 3 of his first 13 career starts, but those were over a mile and further. He then came back last season, 2 from 2 over 7 furlongs, including at the Victoria Cup. Now, looking back at that form, it's worked out really well. The second that day, Biggles went on to win the Bunbury Cup. The third, Vaffatino, won a listed race at Meydan in December. The fourth was Spycatcher, who won a Group 3 in France and then finished placed in a Group 1 later that season. So that's worked out really well. Jim Crowley often rides, and he's going to go to York, obviously, to ride for Shadwell. So I don't know who's going to be on board, but he looks a straightforward ride. He's £8 higher than that Victoria Cup win last year. But just go back and watch it. Like, he hacks up by 4 lengths. To win this off a mark of 103 after 441 days off the track will take some training performance, but it's 20-1. Like, I thought that was quite a big price.
Rebel Territory, 20-1 with Bet365 for the International.
I get it, but I think they've got the wrong favourite here. I think Alto should be favourite myself, the Bunbury Cup winner. Now, he's only a couple of points behind favouritism. But have a look at the Bunbury Cup. He'd been building towards that with a really good run in a fast run race at Haydock. He's been dead consistent since Ian Williams got him. And he was an emphatic winner of the Bunbury Cup. And he's only got a £3 penalty. So I think he has to be right in the mix with a small penalty. Another couple of horses I like to mention, Orazio, who's an interesting one. Favourite 6 times in a row, including for the Wokingham, the Stewards Cup, and the Gold Cup. Punters had lost a bit of faith for this year's Wokingham, but he came home powerfully to be just behind the first 2. And this is his 7 furlong debut, I think, and he's now shaping like he should be well suited by. And I think Skakuza at New Seeker, you're going a way back for a horse, a 3-year-old, to win this race. New Seeker won the Britannia, and then this race. Skakuza was clear second in the Britannia. I looked and thought, this horse must be on the short list, and I thought, crikey, he's gone up £8 for being beaten. And that's a slight concern. So I think Alto and Orazio might be two to keep a very close eye on.
They're both 8-1 with Bet365. I'm going to put up a horse who's 25-1, only because I think his 2 runs at Ascot have resulted in a win in the Buckingham Palace at Royal Ascot last year and a 4th in the Queen Anne this year behind Sharon.
Oh.
That's Witch Hunter. And you watch his last run at Chester, it was a line through it.
Not his track at all.
Not his track. And also it was only, I think, 5 or 6 runners in the race, and Alec Wojcicki got stuck in a pocket. And it all developed, and then he pulled him out. Didn't really have a hard time, Witch Hunter. And he's generally pretty consistent and comes to life, obviously, in the summer. So I thought 25-1 at a course where he's won and been 4th in a Queen Anne. And looking through the race, there's not a huge amount of unexposed potential. I don't see loads of horses with plenty in hand. So I thought he'll have top weight, but I think he can run well.
People who like the hard luck stories will be going straight towards Carry the One, won't they? Who I think was it Pat Dobbs in the Buckingham Palace, a desperate run from over 2 out to inside the last, and came burrowing through on the rail for he finished third behind English Oak. And then last time out in the Bunbury Cup, Ryan Moore was booked to find the gaps, but they didn't come. Yeah. And he came home strongly, but too late behind Alto. So he's bound to corner some support too.
All right, let's move to York on Saturday and talk about the Sky Bet York Stakes. Passengers, the 15-8 favourite, Alflela 5-2, Royal Rhyme 9-2, King's Gambit, who's already been referenced in the show, 6-1, Al Mackham going up in trip, 8-1, JRB 10s, Ancient Rome 14s, Al Mubhir 16s, and Besto and Mujtaba 16s and 25-1. How do you see this?
I think it's a really good race. I hope most, if not all, stand their ground. Yeah. Passenger is the obvious starting point because he looks so good at Chester first time out. Isra boosted that form. Has he had a bug or something that's caused him to miss a couple of runs?
Was it an infection that he had?
Yeah. But it's not like it's an injury as such.
No.
But he's been a big miss from races like the Coral Eclipse and the Prince of Wales' Stakes. He looked a potential Group 1 horse at Chester, and he has to win this or go very close to punch a ticket to the Juddmonte International. But it's deep, this. Alflela is 118, £1 ahead of Passenger's current rating. Royal Rhyme, I think, is still a slightly underrated horse.
Ground?
I prefer a little bit of rain, but they chanced him on the fastest surface at Royal Ascot, and he ran really well. Will Alflela have a penalty for having won this race last year? Either way, he came back from a break with a good effort in the Prince of Wales. And then we have King's Gambit, who's only rated 110 on his unlucky second in the Wolferton Stakes, wasn't it? Again, I'm not sure how many have tried, Rishi and Steve, but the last 3-year-old winner of this race was Best Alibi. And if you're going back to 2006 to find the last 3-year-old, it seems quite a handy stat.
Best Alibi, another for Godolphin.
Yeah.
Good times.
Was he with Godolphin by then, though? Wasn't he with Start initially, no?
Was he not?
Anyway, that's the last one.
I'm thinking, just associate him now. But I think Passenger will win. I hope he wins impressively. Judged by his comeback run, he looks so good, and I'm hoping that he's on song. Passenger, are you going to take him on?
No, I was willing to chance King's Gambit, to be honest. Going back to Passenger, he has a £3 penalty. Alflela avoids a penalty. I mean, King's Gambit will go down as probably one of the most obvious unlucky losers at Royal Ascot. And it's not like they've gone for a penalty kick after this. Like 6-1 is fairly fair with how much he has to find at the ratings. I'm just fascinated to watch this, to be honest. I can't really find a bet in it. But Passenger, Alflela and Royal Rhyme all set it up perfectly. I'm quite excited to see Al Mackham step up in trip. I would have liked him for the Wolferton, but they obviously decided to go for the St James's Palace, and it just never really went for him. He was towards the rear, and obviously Rosalia made the ground, a notable speech, didn't make the ground that day. So I'd be inclined to watch him up in trip, but I think it's just a race to watch with an eye on that Juddmonte International.
You'd be amazed if King's Gambit didn't reverse the Ascot form with GRB, wouldn't you? I would anyway.
Yes, yeah. Okay, anything else over the weekend coming up that you wanted to reference?
Yes. I want a quick word about the Princess Margaret Stakes. I think it's race 2 on the Saturday card at Ascot. And I like the look of Simmering. Yes, she's a maiden, but she's shown bundles of promise on both those runs. First at York, when she was well back behind Araby, who's won 2 group races since. But most importantly, last time out in the Albany Stakes, that is looking really good form. If you have a look at what the horses in behind, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, have done, it looks very, very solid pattern race form. And she's got the Ascot form, course, distance, she travels really well. And Jamie Spencer got Spencered by Ryan Moore on Fairy Godmother, who was value for more, clearly. Fairy Godmother looks a Group 1 filly, but I'll be surprised if Simmering isn't good enough to really go close in the Princess Margaret.
Okay, Princess Margaret on Saturday at Ascot. What about you, Steve?
Yeah, I like the look of Simmering. She's currently 9-1 with Bet365. The Valiant Stakes also sees Royal Ascot form come to the fore. 3-year-olds have a strong hand in it. Friendly Soul could drop back in trip, isn't currently dropped up, so might be a questionable runner. Devoted Queen puts her unbeaten record on the line. I was quite excited by her earlier on in the season.
She missed Ascot. She missed the coronation.
And then you've got the 1-4 from the Sandringham, Soprano and Indelible, both jocked up. Indelible will have Ryan Moore on board. They obviously met at Sandown and reversed that form back round. I think Indelible will probably confirm that form. She's 4-1. And then just a few on Thursday is worth noting. Bedtime Story has been declared for the Silver Flash Stakes. Leopardstown, it's 5.50 on Thursday. Aidan O'Brien has a ridiculous record in this, won it 13 times, 5 out of the last 8, including with Ylang Ylang. And then later on the card, an hour later in the 6.50 on Thursday in the Tyros Stakes, again, Aidan O'Brien's run it a record 16 times. Without Donica beating him in 2022, he'd have won it for the last 10 years in a row. He has 2 declared for that, Surpass and Swagman. So they're not going to be any sort of prices, but just these always seem to be the kind of guineas horses for next year. So if you're having an eye anti-post wise, it's probably worth keeping an eye on those 2 races. Richard Hoyles and Jamie Lynch both discussed Ed Jabir.
Yes.
With regards to the Irish Oaks last week, they both had a slight concern around the 1.5-mile trip. Obviously, Connections decided not to go that route. She is entered in the Lyric Filly Stakes at York on Friday over 10.5 furlongs. I think that will suit her well. It's not going to be a penalty kick. She's going to face Sea of Roses and Doha. So she'll get a weight and age allowance off her elders in that race. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Ejabir can do in that.
Was there a deeper 2-year-old race in Britain last year than the Pat Eddery Stakes?
The
Rosallion won the race.
Yeah.
2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th included Ancient Wisdom,
Ancient Wisdom,
Sunway,
Al Muzmak,
Dancing Gemini.
Yeah.
It was an incredibly deep race. I don't think it can't replicate this weekend, but we've got some interesting horses. Did you see a horse called Chancellor win at Doncaster? By Kingman out of Queen's Trust.
Yeah.
Terrific pedigree and just went whoosh. Despite
he did everything wrong in the race. He missed the kick. He was held up at the back. It was a slowly run race, and he absolutely mullered them. He's exciting.
Our man Simon Rowlands, expert time analysis, described his time performance and his splits performance as outstanding for a debutant. So it's about time the Gosdens took the wraps off something special in the juvenile department. Maybe this will be the one. But the likes of Al Qudra, who ran a really good race for Godolphin, 5th in the Coventry, we're going to have those, triple-figure horses to judge the likes of Chancellor against. But that's going to be a fascinating race this week.
Preempted my big one for the week. That's the horse I can't wait to see this week. The Chancellor.
Rachel Reeves all over it.
Well, Rishi Sunak.
Of course, ex-Chancellor, yeah.
The ex-Chancellor. And there was another horse, do you remember there was another horse called Chancellor back in the day? A chestnut horse. I can't remember his trainer. I think he was a Gredley horse.
Right.
I think he might have run in the Derby or something.
Yeah, it does ring a bell now. When you say Gredley.
A Gredley horse, yeah, Chancellor. I think this one I'm hoping this one turns out to be better than he, even though he was pretty good. But that would be the horse that I'm looking forward to most this week. And actually, there's a Bet365 sponsored card at Chepstow on Friday.
Yeah.
On a different level of horses. There's a horse running. At Chelsea. There are some horses that run at a very low level, but you just love them, and they turn up week after week. And there's one horse called Fact or Fable that I've followed for a very long time, and he's running at Chepstow again. He's won 4 times at Chepstow. He's been second 4 times at Chepstow. He's a real Chepstow specialist, and he's running in the opening race on Friday. He'll be carrying some of my cash as well at some point.
You mentioned Chepstow form, and it's quite interesting. So I like one on that card as well, the Bet365 sponsored card. It's the 650, the Bet365 handicap over 5 furlongs. Now, Mockatil, it's interesting. So he's raced 90 times in his career, only 1 start at Chepstow, which was his last start. Now, he'd dropped from a mark of 102 down to 55, so that was some fall in grace.
Yeah.
But won by 3 lengths that day. Because it was an apprentice handicap, no penalty.
Yeah.
The handicapper has raised him £6 today, so he'll be £6 well in at the weights. Mockatil in the 650 at Chepstow has got to go well.
Who would have thought that on this wonderful programme we dip into lower grade stuff at Chepstow?
I'm more of a Chepstow jumps man, and on that subject,
Oh yes,
the old Chris Giles dispersal sale created a few fireworks on Tuesday, didn't it?
Extraordinary.
Monday, sorry.
Some huge amount. And Regent Stroll, 600 plus. The most expensive horse sold at a national hunt sale.
Yeah.
But Paul Nicholls desperate to keep him.
Yeah.
Stairway Fay, 320 odd grand.
Yeah.
Rubaud, 200.
Yeah. Those 3 all going back to Nicholls.
Yeah. Well, the majority came back to Nicholls.
Yeah.
I think there was, 10 at the sale, and I think 7 or 8 are going back to Nicholls. So
Said it was one of the most nervous hours of his life watching those horses going.
I was
to
a
the
bit
ring.
surprised. I mean, for someone who trained Corto Star, Denman and Big Bucks.
What 2 things I quite liked about this story as a whole. First of all, Alex Ferguson, John Hales, Jed Mason, they're all wrapped up in the Colwell Potter and the Regent Stroll, etc. Those old lads are saying, we're going to give it a lash in the autumn of our racing career. So good on them for that. And the other thing that I really liked about Nicholls' comments, and something we are probably guilty of not taking enough account of, he was very keen to stress the probably 8 to 10 lads and girls at home who sent those horses off, you know,
very good point.
dressed them up beautifully, etc., praying that they'd come back.
Yeah.
And can you imagine that sort of bond and putting them on the box to go to the sale and thinking, are they coming back here or are they going somewhere else? So I thought it was quite a neat touch to credit those staff who were hoping they'd get their the favourites back.
Absolutely. There's a cynical side to racing that we obviously think, it's just big money and big owners, but there are people who actually get that attachment to the horses who will have been they would have been more nervous than Paul Nicholls, you'd imagine.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of the horses they look after and hoping and praying that they come back.
And it's still one of the balmy strengths of jump racing that those guys, Fergie and Hales and company, Jed Mason, they are prepared to lash out fortunes, absolutely safe in the knowledge
that's what Teletubbies will get you.
They're most unlikely to get half of it back, but the thrill of being in those winners' enclosures.
Well, I mean, John Hales is desperate to have a Gold Cup horse. He is absolutely desperate to have a Gold Cup horse. So, in fairness, he's put a hell of a lot into the game. So hopefully something at least gives him that thrill. I think that's it in terms of our preview of what's coming up. We haven't got anything else. So that's the bulk of our preview for this week's racing. But before we get into our best bets of the weekend, just to let you know of a free-to-play 6 horses challenge. It's available every weekend with prize pools available for 5 and 4 correct predictions, as well as a jackpot for all 6. T's and C's apply. So it's now time for the best bets for Steve, myself and Graham for this week ahead. Graham, you are our special guest, so you're first at the crease.
Okay, I like a few horses this weekend. I like Alto and Orazio in the big international handicap. I'm sure they'll give you a good run. But for my best bet, I'm going to go in the Princess Margaret Stakes, group race for 2-year-old fillies, and I think Simmering is the one to be on. And it's no complicated story here. I think she has perhaps the best form in the race. That form came over course and distance at Royal Ascot in the Albany Stakes. She travelled beautifully. She put her nose in front, maybe about 75 yards from the line, and was then run down by a high-class prospect in Fairy Godmother. It's not just that, it's the way the horses in behind, all the horses who finished just behind that day have gone on to frank the form at one level or another. So I think she has a great deal in her favour. Plenty of potential dangers, but I don't think any of them have the form of Simmering. So in the Princess Margaret, I think Simmering is ready to come to the boil.
Beautiful. You better have a pun as good as that for your best bet.
I haven't. So mine is going to come in the Moet Chandon International Stakes, and it's Rebel territory. This is going to take some training performance from Amanda Perrett. 441 days off the track. But it's worth noting, 2 from 2 over 7 furlongs in his career. Both of those came last season before an injury. Has won 2 times on his reappearance in there. Kieran Schumacher is now jocked up for the ride. It's 20 to 1 with Bet365, and I think he's a fantastic bet in the Moet Chandon.
Okay, well, I hope Kieran Schumacher has a great day on Saturday, because my best bet of the weekend is Chancellor in the Pat-Ellery, the old Wingfield Stakes. Graham Cunningham alluded to the fact that last year's race proved to be a great guide to the future. Rosalien won it. And this horse, I think, has the same sort of potential after one start where he bolted up at Doncaster. Everything went wrong for him. He was slowly away. He was then detached at the back, made up a lot of ground in a slowly run race and won impressively. His times were sensational. He's by Kingman out of the Breeders' Cup filly and mare turf winner Queen's Trust, who was trained by Sir Michael Stout. Races in the colours of Cheveley Park. John and Thady Gosden responsible for Chancellor. He won over 6 first time up, and everything about his pedigree suggests that further will be better. So stepping up to 7 furlongs. And also there was cut in the ground when he won at Doncaster. If you look through his whole family, both Kingman and Queen's Trust, they were better on fast ground. So stepping up in trip, going to 7 furlongs, better ground, that pedigree, that stunning debut suggests that we might be dealing with something special. So enjoy some free cash with courtesy of the Chancellor. That's the best. That's the best I can do. That's the best I can do. Anything else that you want to mention, Graham? Or are we done? Any topics that's still burning that you want to tidy up? Or
Well, I think Goodwood's on the horizon.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to the Sussex Stakes. We talked about the fillies earlier on, 3-year-old middle distance fillies. They're fine, not stars. I think the 3-year-old miling division is a tremendously deep division. So we have the rematch between Rosalien, Henry Longfellow, and Notable Speech, and Hartem, hopefully. I don't know whether he'll go there. But that is a heavyweight contest in more ways than one. If you look at the history of the Sussex Stakes, oftentimes the St James Palace winner can go on and confirm that form. But it's not unusual, far from unusual, for one of the beaten horses at Ascot to shine. And if it gets really tactical, then I think Henry Longfellow is capable of perhaps turning over Rosalien. I think at the prices, I'd be keen on him. I think all the hullabaloo over City of Troy sort of masks the fact that Ballydoyle has another really, really good 3-year-old, and I would not be shocked at all if Henry Longfellow has a really productive second half of the season.
I'll be gutted. I wouldn't be shocked if he beat Rosalien. I'll be gutted because I think Rosalien is one of the best 3-year-old milers that we have seen in a long, long time. I think he's as good as we've seen in the last decade as a 3-year-old miler.
A bit of Canford Cliffs about him, isn't
there? Yeah, there's something about that. Something
Stork
about
and
that.
Pants,
Yeah. Stork. I think we were talking about jockeys earlier on. I think Sean Levy has grown as a jockey, courtesy of this partnership with Rosalien. So I'm hoping he has this Sussex, maybe QE2, and then he wins the Breeders' Cup mile.
Even money in 4-1 though, you're not.
I just think he's that good. I mean, but yeah, the prices. I'd imagine the prices will be closer between them. I can't imagine Henry Longfellow will be 4s on the day.
It's way too early to toss Notable Speech though, isn't it?
Yeah, way too early. But I still think that Rosalien was a little bit unlucky the way the race developed in the Guineas. But that's going back in time, and that might be one for another day. Thank you both for your company. I've really enjoyed this episode of Racing Weekly. I hope you have too. Brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Thank you very much to Graham Cunningham and Steve Ryder for joining me on the show. As always, if you liked what you've heard or watched in this or any of our previous episodes, then leave us a kind review on Apple Podcasts or in the comments section on YouTube. Steve will be in this chair. Alongside him next week will be George Baker and Johnny Ward, looking ahead to Rosalien's victory over all the rivals, Notable Speech and whoever else wants to line up against him in the Sussex Stakes. Because, of course, they're looking ahead to is it the Qatar Goodwood Festival still, or is it Glorious Goodwood? Which one is it?
Give Qatar the credit.
The Qatar Goodwood Festival, but we know it as the Glorious Goodwood Meeting. Thank you very much for joining us on this episode of Racing Weekly. Look forward to seeing you all very soon.